time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made...
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Humans of Horses podcast. My name is Elle, and I'm the human of three wonderful horses, Fionn, Zakonia, and Morgan. And with me today is Lisa, who I'm very, 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 very excited to talk to. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Elle, for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because, of course, you and I met through horses. But yeah, who I am, I'm Lisa Dempsey. I am a leadership coach. So I work with human beings on an individual basis, on a team basis, on an entire organizational basis around the world to really help them become better humans and learn how to work together better as humans. But I learned a huge amount of what I know about relationships and how people work from horses. So I'm really excited to sort of dive into this and kind of unravel like what is this magical relationship between humans and horses and what makes that so special, and why do they make such good therapy partners? Why do they make such good co-regulation partners? Yeah, because there's so many interesting stories that tie into how do you become a really great, effective human being that's deeply entrenched in horses.
Which you and I both are. And I think for both of us, it was fairly early on in our lives, although I took a bit of a break. But yeah. So do you want to talk a bit about from how horses came into your life to begin with?
Well, as a child, I loved animals. I loved animals so much. And my mother worked in a medical research laboratory, and she would bring home animals of all sorts that had, survived all sorts of horrific experiments and things like that. Um, Not many of them stayed around for a very long time, so I also learned to deal with loss very early on. But one of her very good friends, she had two daughters, and they had a horse, and I just loved this horse. His name was Gobby, and he was this big white Appaloosa that was just gorgeous, and he just, I think, if I can feel it in my body even as I speak about it. I think he was the first being that I truly felt safe with. So there are these photos of me sitting on Gabi as young as like probably 2 or 3 years old, just having no idea what I was doing, but just happy as could be, just so pleased to be spending time with this giant, this gentle giant.
Yeah, this is so cute. I'm just like, yay, warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, he was such a good caretaker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you say he was such a good caretaker. Like, I feel each horse in our lives comes and gives a role, or is there as a role into or not just horses, but animals as well. So like for me, my caretaker was my childhood cat, Holly, because she was just very much there. I was an only child. She did literally everything with me.
Yeah.
And in a sort of spiritual way, for me, Holly kind of handed over to Fionn, actually, with that role.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, seeing if a question is coming up. Well, do you want to just start talking about what you want to talk about?
Well, I think so. I've always been fascinated by horses. I started writing from a very young age. From the time I was 8 years old, I was, doing lessons and learning how to do all sorts of like really fun and interesting things. Yeah, I was a part of a writing club. So I grew up in Colorado. And there was a writing club called the Western Airs, which was all about, teaching young kids horsemanship, and genuine horsemanship. It wasn't, it wasn't one of these places where it's like, oh yeah, just go along and sit on the back of a horse and, learn how to do technical things. They took it really seriously about how to give care to horses, how to, truly look after them from, head to tail. And then alongside that, you got to learn to ride and do all sorts of disciplines. So I learned Roman riding, I learned liberty, I learned just all sorts of fun things. Um, and there was always something for me, the excitement that the horses brought was always different than anything else in my week. I loved school, I liked going to school, I loved playing with my friends, things like that, but there was always something just really magical about horses. Um, and I think it wasn't until I was older that I started to appreciate actually how meaningful that was. Um, because I also, I grew up as an only child. I didn't grow up with siblings, and I also grew up the daughter of a single mom, who really struggled. She really struggled mentally. She found herself regularly overwhelmed, and I found myself very much being her caretaker.
Mm.
I learned from a very young age to, be highly sensitive to whatever her needs were. I could walk home from school, and more than a block away, I would know what sort of mood she was going to be in. So I learned to be highly sensitive to those sorts of things. And with the horses, that was the one place where I could just let go and I could have fun and I could trust them. And I knew that they could take care of me in various ways. Now, of course, to an 8-year-old child, a horse is huge, right? So
Yeah.
it's not automatic safety, but it's because of that, it taught me also in big ways how to look after myself, right? How to navigate things with, you know, animals that were much larger and much more powerful and strong than I was, but be able to look after myself, but in a way that was really well balanced. And I think this is the really interesting thing about horses is this magical ability that humans and horses have to be able to co-regulate together. Um,
Mm.
and I guess are your listeners likely to know what I say when I say co-regulate? Because that's not a term that like everybody knows or understands.
You can delve into it in case there are people who do or don't know.
Yeah, well, so self-regulation is the ability to kind of regulate your own emotions, and that doesn't mean suppress them or overturn them or manage them in a way, but self-regulation, it's sort of the difference between, like, if you imagine somebody who's in a deep, dark, and stormy ocean, and you imagine somebody who's just, like, in the water and who is flailing to keep their head above water, that's like being in your emotion. Whereas if you
Mm.
imagine somebody sitting in a life raft or a boat, it's still the dark, stormy water is there, but you're not fighting for your survival. So you're able to be with an emotion rather than be the emotion. And that's self-regulation, being able to separate like I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling angry rather than I am angry and every fiber of my being is on fire, right?
Mm.
So that's self-regulation. Now, co-regulation is something that most of the time social animals, so we, horses, dogs, cats, all social animals, we tend to learn this from a very, very young age with our families. Most of the time with our mother as our very first caregiver, but we can also learn it from another parent, or we can learn it from other pieces in our family system. But co-regulation is being able to, rather than just relying upon sort of self-soothing, to be soothed by others and to, calm down because there's a calming influence for our emotions to be heard and to be felt by another, and to get that feeling of being seen and heard. And so co-regulation is that ability to regulate emotions in the presence of another being. And it requires a tremendous amount of safety, right? You can't co-regulate with something that A, can't regulate itself, and that B, can't be with your emotions, right? Because it becomes really unsafe. Now, because I grew up in a home where, yeah, my caretaker wasn't my caretaker and wasn't very well regulated, I was left without any co-regulation until really I met horses. And what's really interesting and what I now know all these years later, after having studied coaching and having delved into the neuroscience of coaching, and also why horses are such, powerful therapy and coaching partners, is that the way that our nervous system is wired makes us really sensitive to particular things, usually to emotional events and to things that feel threatening to mostly our psychological safety. Whereas horses are much more wired to feel threatened by physical things in their environment. And so it makes our nervous systems really complementary to one another. Things that we're able to very clearly see and say, like, oh, yeah, that bag that's blowing, it's okay. You're going to be fine. It's not going to get you. Whereas the horse's nervous system is going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. We can hold the space for them and calm them and say, it's okay. I'm here with you. You're going to be fine. This bag is not going to devour us. And in the same way, yeah, I feel like you can imagine these examples, right? Like you've been with horses when they freak out about something that our brains sort of go like, what? Like, it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the same way, the things that tend to feel really threatening or upsetting to us are things that they feel very calm about, things that they're very grounded in, and their nervous systems they have a very wide capacity to be able to cope and manage. And so this is one of the reasons why they make such great co-regulation partners. Because we just have very, very complementary systems. Whereas, yeah, sometimes, and maybe you've experienced this, have you ever been in the presence of a human being where you're freaking out about something, and because you're freaking out about it, the other person also starts to freak out about it, right? Like their mirror neurons start kicking off too, and suddenly like you're both going, oh, but now we're both scared and nervous, and no, we're both really uncertain. Oh.
And also not just the freaking out, but also negative emotions or like anger or frustration. Like, I notice it when it's showing up in someone else, and I'm there like, I really don't want this to project onto me, but sometimes it just does, and you're just there like, wow, this person's really dysregulating me, and they probably don't even realize that that's happening. Like I actually had that today at work, and I was just like, this is heavy. And yeah, I actually finished the day and I was like, I really want to cry because this has been very intense, but I can't cry because I'm in a public space and now is not the place to cry. So it's interesting. Yeah. And it all comes from the group cohesion as well. Like I've seen it when I've been able to shift someone who I've noticed has like almost a negative vibe about them. And then I've been like, hey, what's showing up for you today? Which is a question I've learned from my horses, right? And then, I said, did you have a difficult drive into work? And they were like, yeah, actually I did. This happened. I'm like, oh man, that really sucks.
Yeah.
Like I hear you, And then
and that's
I
when
just
you're
make a joke, and then they're like, oh, haha, yeah, exactly. Because you're meeting them where they're at. Yeah.
And you're able to hold space for them, right? Their negativity, their nervousness, their, whatever residue they're carrying with them from whatever they've just experienced, you're able to see that and sort of engage with that in a healthy way, as opposed to, it sounds like today you found yourself in a circumstance where somebody's negativity just sort of oozed into you and you kind of absorbed it, right?
Yeah, rather than keep my little bubble.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the
Yeah.
dysregulation spread, and that happens really easily between humans. We're particularly susceptible to that because we are highly sensitive to each other's emotions. We are highly attuned to, what's going on. We can read all of those signals, and our mirror neurons can kick in just sort of a huge cascade of things. And before you know it, and especially like what comes to my mind is really powerful things like shame or loneliness or fear. If you talk to therapists, they will tell you like those things can creep across the table and grab them, right?
Mm.
Even before they know it. And so it can be, especially with really big emotions, it can be really difficult for humans to be able to co-regulate together. Whereas with horses, it's again, we just have these magically complementary nervous systems. The things that are upsetting to them are not very upsetting to us. What's upsetting to us is not very upsetting to them. So we can co-regulate with them in really, really unique ways.
Yeah. The story for me that's coming to mind is I think it was in May when I'd sort of left my horses in the UK and I'd been
Yeah.
back in the Netherlands, and then I came back and I noticed, I was like, man, I'm really like feeling weird today. And I couldn't work out why. And then at one point I just sat on the camping chair, like in their field,
Yeah.
and I suddenly like just started almost crying. And then Morgan came up to me and she had a muzzle here, and I took a picture of us and I was like, we've got the same emotion in our eyes and in our expression. And I was like, I think this is their sadness that I'm not here every day like I was. So I was like, this is not my emotion, it's actually Morgan's emotion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like,
What
that's the first time I really felt an emotion from them. And I was like,
mm,
whew.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they have big emotions as well. They just don't show them in the same way,
Mm.
right? And this is why like attuned horsemanship becomes so important because they don't communicate their emotions in the same way that we do. So we have to kind of learn what their language is, what are their signs here. So like what was that you were feeling from Morgan when she came and just sort of rested her muzzle near you, and what was that you picked up on?
Whew. Trying to remember the moment. It was like I just felt really like this wave of like sadness wash over me. And by comparison now, because obviously they've got used to me not going every day,
Mhm.
um, it's kind of this like joy when she sees me on day one.
Mm.
She's like, "Hi, you're back. Yay." Like, and
Yeah.
it's like, "Love me." And the other two were like, "I want love too, but Morgan's there."
She's the pushy, needy baby going me, 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 me,
Yeah,
me.
yeah. But yeah, I think for her, obviously, I've had her since she was 2, and I've been there every single day, until April. So I'm that really like consistent presence for her.
Mhm,
So then for her to not have that and suddenly have new humans who were taking good care of them but didn't necessarily understand her language and the way she was working, and then I felt she was just a bit misunderstood and a bit frustrated of like, no one's understanding me kind of thing.
mm,
But that's why I was like, okay, she needs help. So then I found somebody to train her once a week to kind
mhm,
of teach her the language of humans. Because I knew Morgan's language and I can deal with Morgan's language, but she couldn't deal with humans' language. So I was just like, right, someone needs to teach her that. I'm not there to do it because I'm not with her every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I found someone, and now she's completely fine. Like, she can be handled by anyone now in terms of like leading and stuff and going in and out of gates and yada yada yada. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she had to learn also a certain amount of attunement of, oh,
yeah.
okay, these human signals, like what are they? And what
Yeah.
are
And
these
her
people
natural
actually?
response is like, well, I don't know what you're asking me, so I'm just not going to move.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm going to get frustrated because I'm a teenager.
yeah.
She's like, "Meh."
Yeah,
But once she knows what it is you're asking, she's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
yeah, yeah.
And as soon as you escalate, she's like, no.
Yeah, no, so I happen to know your horses because I helped take care of them when you were here in the Netherlands. I would go out and do various things with them. That was how we met.
Yeah.
Um, and Morgan is really clearly, she's not a horse that responds to, force or escalation, which is lovely
Mm,
because that's not the way that she's been trained. And that is the natural response. All other social animals, when you get into force and sort of this power over kind of dynamic, it shuts things down. Most don't disengage. Animals who've been, treated very badly and have been shown that, oh, escalation is the only way and it's only going to get worse, well, yeah, you run into a lot of problems with that. And so it's lovely that she has this natural instinct of like, you want to be upset with me? I'm going to ignore you.
yeah. And I think it helps hold us accountable for our own emotions and what we're bringing into her space as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very much the sort of natural role that horses play in this sort of dance of self-regulation and co-regulation. Until you have a certain amount of self-regulation, naturally they will not engage with you. Yeah, they will just be like, yeah, no, like you're upset. You go be upset. And once you've sorted yourself out, come back and talk to me. you know,
Yeah.
and that's very much their natural way. Um, and that forces people into a real accountability, right?
Mm,
You have to be aware of your own emotions and what's going on. And until you are able to do that, they don't engage in meaningful ways. They won't engage in, activities. Um, and Morgan is such a really good example because she really, she will just hold her ground and be like, no, like I am not interested in anything that you have to say to me right now
yeah,
until you figure
exactly.
out like, okay, like what is it that I'm actually looking for from her? And how can I engage with her in a way that's actually motivating and interesting to her? And then she's all for it. Then she's super
Yeah,
curious and like, oh, it's a game. Let's do this.
exactly. I think that captured it very beautifully. One thing that popped up as we were just talking is I think one of my biggest passions is like seeing how I talk about it as like a sort of shuttle between the horses and the humans. And like there's stuff I learn in the human world that helps me show up for the horses, and the stuff in the horse world that helps me show up for the humans.
Mhm,
And I think this like meeting someone where they're at and the attunement came from the horses for me and helps me with humans. But it can be very difficult when I feel like humans, there's always, yes, I can tell you, hey, I've got a sore back, so I'm a bit grouchy today. I can tell you that.
mhm,
But to be able to tell you that, I need to be open and comfortable in the first place. And it's like, I need to take care of myself first before I can show up and meet other people to then help them. And that's
mhm.
something for me that came from the horses.
Yeah, 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 very much so. Well, and it's why psychological safety is so important. Um, you know, being able to build that psychological safety so that somebody can feel comfortable enough to be able to go, hey, I'm not at 100% today. And so I need some things from you. right? That requires real psychological safety, and that's not something that humans are automatically good at. So psychological safety is absolutely not something that people are automatically good at. It's something that we all want and need, but particularly in this crazy modern world that we live in, we don't attune to that immediately. The first thing that we're taught in school or in our families is, well, what's the problem and how are we going to fix it?
Mm.
Right? As opposed to that space of, hey, what is it that you really need? And is there anything I can do to help you? Right? How are we going to solve this together? That is no longer the default. And so that's also one of the reasons why the horses, being able to connect with them is so magical, because they automatically hold that space. And their space is really clean. If you come to them and you are in a dysregulated space, they won't engage with you. If you come to them and you're in that genuinely open and vulnerable space of, hey, I need something, they will absolutely turn towards you. And they will absolutely do whatever they can to just hold space and be with you. And for humans, it's really hard because our brains have been so geared towards fixing. Right? We immediately well, what can I do? How can I make it better? What if we try this? What if we try that? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And oftentimes that's not what we need. We just need that space to go, yeah, today was a really crap day.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
Literally.
what do you recognize in that? What do you recognize in that for yourself?
The biggest thing that just came up was just Fion. Fion. He's just, yeah. Yeah. He helped me be accountable for who I am and how I'm showing up, and develop that awareness. He was really the first step for me on that journey of understanding who I am and also who I want to be and grow into, because he needs you to be that way.
Yeah.
In order to show up for him and get him to how he is now. I mean, he still has a journey to go on for himself, but it's interesting. I was reflecting on it. I think last time I was with them. So I knew him as in Dutch it's called a verzorgerpaard, but I don't really know how you translate that into English, like a care horse.
Yeah, it's sort of like a lease horse, only you're not paying money. You're just helping
No,
to
you're
care
just
for them. So they're not
taking
your
care of
horse,
it.
but you're looking after them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking after him and his buddy Kansas, and they were in this field that was it was not a main road, but there was always a lot of people going past all the time, and it was just Fion and Kansas, and he was the older horse. And when I look back on him then, I think he took on very seriously the feeling that I'm the older guy, I need to be the leader, and I need to be responsible for Kansas and me and our safety. So I think that's when his nervous system just got very overloaded, because he was an immature leader. But he was still willing to give that leadership, but he didn't go about it in a way that was either healthy for him or for others. And then when we moved, he then became like the bottom horse. So he was just always moved. And he was so reactive, like, oh my gosh, I have to move. Like all the time.
Yeah.
And it took literally years for him to get to where he is now. And I feel like now he's I wouldn't say any single one of them is the standout leader, because I've seen them all take on the responsibility of the herd's well-being and safety in different situations. For example, Morgan was the leader when Zirconia attacked Fion because she actually was watching them and she intervened and separated. So she saw a gap. She's put herself in between the two of them and drove Zir away from Fion.
Yeah.
Which was very remarkable for a 4-year-old. But like Fion, he kind of keeps the peace with, like, I think eating. So, which is really interesting because he used to be the horse that always got moved. And now he's actually, since the attack as well, he's quite boundaried with Zir. Like, he doesn't let her kind of trample over him. He's just like, no, this is my space. You go away, you know. And she's actually quite wary of him. She'll be like, oh, okay. But like, he's still, I think he still is the one who they turn to for things like, where are we going to go for food? Do we need to be over here now? And they kind of follow him in that sense. And like, again, with the walk that I did the other day, he actually was in front, which is so interesting because he was the guy who was always bolting. Zir needed him to be in front and to be the leader on the walk, and him being so okay with his surroundings helped her be okay. And helped her be present. Which is very cool.
So that's their way of sort of co-regulating together. And this is the thing. So these old ideas that we used to have about like herd hierarchies and things like that, like it's nonsense. You know, that was an entirely human created perception. They don't have a hierarchy. They do trade leadership, and they do, you know, they flow very much. You know, it flows very much like water, and it's constantly changing. You know, the one that's holding sentry when they're sleeping or relaxing will switch. It's never just one, right? Because they know very intuitively that if that role always falls to just one horse, that horse is going to get exhausted and they're not going to be able to be very good at any of this. They need to trade this. And it's funny you say that. It's remarkable that Morgan, as a 4-year-old, was able to intervene in the conflict between Fion and Zirconia. But really, again, that's, you know, it's an example of the co-regulation. She saw both of them in a fairly unregulated state, and because she was not involved in it, she was able to step in and be like, this is not how we are with one another. No, like, this is, you go over there and you go over there. We're not doing this. Right? And it's not, you know, it's not necessarily something that has to do with age or maturity. It has to do with that, you know, that natural herd kind of flow of no one is responsible for all or anything of any part of that dynamic. It flows between them, and they find balance with one another. And this is something that horses are really, really good at. And again, humans are just terrible at. We fall into all sorts of bad patterns and habits. And, well, you know, you need to go and pick up the kids. Why? Well, because that's what you always do. No, hold on. Or you need to cook dinner because that's what you always do. No, hold on. You know, we need to calibrate according to like what's here now, and what are our communal resources and how can we best spend them, right?
Yeah. One clip that I really love, and I'm bringing her up now because I feel like this is a great moment, is Brene Brown when I saw a clip where she's talking about the 50-50 in a relationship and how ideally we want to bring, you know, my 50 and like my partner's 50, but that's not always possible because I'm tired, you're tired, this has happened or that has happened. So that's when I really love her verbalization of like, okay, where are you at with your 50?
Yeah.
Are you at a 30? And okay, I can maybe take 10 of the remaining 20, and at least we're meeting each other where we're at. And actually, that's the language I used to use with one of the girls I used to share the land with. I said, hey, like, because we kind of developed all this communication and showing up for each other and meeting each other where we're at, because it was just the two of us looking after 6 horses. So, you know, and we'd be really good at saying, like, and not feeling any shame or resentment towards each other of like, hey, I'm not okay, can you do today? You
Yeah.
know, I'm feeling sick, do you mind if you cover this? Or like, you know, I'm really drained right now because I have a lot going on, I can maybe do this, but do you mind doing that? And I never needed to say no whenever that request was made, because I knew I felt safe to then, when it was me who needed to be met, I felt safe to say, hey, can you take the rest of my 50 that I'm not able to bring today?
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's that natural flow of that sort of herd dynamic of like, hey, we're in this together. Where are you at? You know, what resources are available to you? What resources are available to me? And let's figure out how we can co-create something as opposed to this, you know, again, it sort of comes from this very dysfunctional human construct of, well, yeah, it's supposed to be 50-50, and if I'm not pulling my 50%, well, I'm somehow no, 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 no. Like we have some common goals, we have some common things that we need to do. Let's figure out how we can do this together. And rather than having this prescribed, well, this is my role and this is my responsibility and this is
Mm.
what I have to do, it's much more, hey, this is what I have available today. What do you have available
Mm.
today? And how do we want to spend that available resource together? Right. And that's something that horses do really well, really naturally, that we can learn so much from because they don't have this fixed herd dynamic where one is always this or always that. You know, they
Mm.
pick up very quickly and easily on, okay, so hey, today, like in your story of like going out, you know, like sounds like Zira picked up on, okay, today Fionn is feeling much more grounded and stable than I am. So let's let him be in front. He's usually the nervous Nelly that's in the back going, oh, but, we're going out the gate. But. But you know what? He's feeling it today, and maybe I'm not. So let's do this differently. Let's not just default to our habit and what we always do. Um,
Mm.
and that's a very human thing, and a big mistake that we make.
Mm. It's funny because you know, I do a job where our roles are very prescribed. It's like we're either pilot flying or we're pilot monitoring. We're either the captain or we're the first officer, and it's very rigid. But there are times I've dealt with, like, when we've had a disruptive passenger or like we've got a technical issue, and in those moments the captain's workload increases because they're the ones having to make phone calls and organize sort of non-standard things that are going up. But
Yeah.
then, even though it's prescribed as well, this is the pilot monitoring's role, this is the pilot flying's role, if he's then away dealing with that, I'm like, okay, what out of the normal stuff can I do right now
Yeah.
that's not my prescribed role, but he would be doing with me at this moment, but he can't? What of those things can I do to
Mhm.
show up in that way whilst he deals with the other thing? You know, and
Yeah.
I really like that part of my job, is just being like, right, I'm going to take the initiative and I'm going to help out here and do the thing that's not prescribed to me, but I can see that in this moment he needs me to do that. Or if I get a chance, I'll verbalize it like, hey, are you okay if I get on and do this whilst you're dealing with that? Yeah, great, cool. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, then, you know, from the first officer perspective, it's like, I know that by just saying that, he knows that I've got his back, like, and that I'm happy to step up when I need
Right.
to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's that psychological safety and that co-regulation and that flow. You know, yes, okay, there are certain protocols, yes, there are certain prescribed things, but you're being attuned to that other human being and you're being attuned to what do they actually need. Right.
Mm.
And when you're able to do that and then not only do it, but also like communicate about it in a meaningful way, that's where magic happens, right? This is where teamwork really comes to life. And this is where that kind of magic of 1 + 1 is not 2, 1 + 1 is 5 or 10 or 20,
Mm.
because there's suddenly this secret, you know, extra power that's unlocked when you're able to be attuned to one another.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's something that the horses do really naturally, right? They pick up on these things. They're very naturally attuned to us. They're very naturally attuned to each other. And when we can learn those lessons, when we can, figure out that, oh yeah, wait a minute, this is not about protocol. This is not about what I should or what I have to do. It's about me being grounded in myself and able to self-regulate enough to be able to at least even articulate what it is that I need. And then we can decide from there, right? Then we can figure out like what we're going to do from there. Um, and that it's, horses are just really, really powerful teachers in that because they don't mess around with it, right? They don't. Like I can remember one time. So when I was working full time in a corporate job, one of my ways to decompress after a really busy week would be to go out and ride horses at a manege that was about 20 minutes away from my house, a riding stable that they had. At the time they had close to 300 horses
Wow.
on their property. Yeah, it was really big. The
That's
guy
a lot
was
of poo.
That's a lot of poo, it's a lot of hay, it's a lot of straw, it's a lot of everything. Um, but I would go out and ride new horses that they had just brought in to just sort of see what they could do. After I had finished doing Western airs, did English writing and learned jumping and all of that and went pretty far in the jumping world until I went to university, had to sell my horses and move on to a slightly different life. So this was a really great way for me to decompress. But I remember going out, it had been a particularly hard day. We'd start writing at 10 o'clock at night. So it was after all of the other manege activities, all of the other stable activities were finished up. And there wasn't a new horse in, so he put me on sort of one of the old school horses, but that needed to be a little bit, fine-tuned. He'd been getting away with some things that he shouldn't be getting away with and all of that. And I said, I'm really tired. Like I'm just not feeling it. Like I don't feel good from this week. And the guy who owned the stable, really nice guy, but he was a guy in his 60s, old school, like, no, just push through it. You'll be fine. You're strong. You can do it. Okay, so I go and, warm up and do the thing and then go over just the teeny tiniest little cross rail and boom, I fall off. I just tumble right off, no. Because this horse was just not having it. He's like, you're not feeling good. I've not been having a good week either. I'm not doing this with you. Beyond the embarrassment of it, of just, toppling off for absolutely no reason other than just nothing was aligned in that moment. And the signals that I was giving to the other human that was with me were not being picked on. The signals that the horse was giving to me, I was not picking up on because I was out of alignment with myself. And um, there's a real cleanness to that. There's just a real clarity to the level of that message. There's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no anything. There's just, no, this isn't working today. And it just is. And it's a powerful reminder to,
Mm.
really hold that attunement, right? Hold that attunement with ourselves. If in that instance I had just held my ground a little bit firmer and been like, listen, I'm not going to do anything sophisticated right now because, it, I do not feel good. I am tired. I am not fully myself. I'm not in this place where I can actually attune to and be with this horse. This horse is not having a good week. I'm not doing it. It wouldn't have happened. Or if the human that I was communicating with had been able to hear my message and be like, oh, right, okay. So we're not going to do what we normally do. Again, like he was in his habit of, like Lisa's tough. She can do anything. And that was his habit. And it's like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm a human being. I can do a lot of things, but I also need to be grounded in myself. I need to feel my own resourcefulness. Um,
Mhm.
and the horse just he just brought such clarity to all of that. Of just we're not playing this today. This is not on. And there was no debate, there was no argument, there was no fury about it, right? There was no big blow up. It was just no.
Yep. Well, it's not really like a regulation story, but I remember once I got off a zare and I literally just fell off. Like, as I was dismounting, I just fell on the ground. And
Yeah.
I remember she just looked at me like, huh?
What are you doing down there?
That's not what normally happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like got nothing to do with the conversation, but I was just picturing that when you were telling this story. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, no, it does, because it's like if a person, if that had happened with a person, there's the likelihood that they might make fun of you, or that you. Whereas she just stands there and looks at you like, is everything
What?
okay? What's happening?
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
there's no escalation. There's no judgment. There's no drama about it. It's just, there's just clarity of like, you're on the ground. Are you okay? What's
Yeah.
happening?
It's like back when I just had Fion, I did fall off him. And he sort of realized I'd fallen off, and he immediately turned around and came back to me like, are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I'm still alive. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that oftentimes people are really surprised about, is when they fall off their horse for whatever reason. A lot of times the horses will either immediately stop, right? It's sort of like this emergency ripcord. They're like, oh, something's gone really wrong. What? Hold on.
It's like the disconnect button on like a generator or something, or like,
Yeah.
the quad bikes when you pull the thing out and it stops. It's like, oh, hang on.
Yeah. 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 Or they turn around and they come back and they're like, oh, are you okay? And a lot of people are really surprised, because a lot of people kind of assume that, especially if the horse has been bucking or been acting up or doing something, there's sort of an assumption of maliciousness, like, oh, they were trying to do that. This was their intent. This is what they were doing. It's like, no, 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 no. Like they were not intending to hurt you. They were not intending to do anything. Something was going on for them. Something different was going on for you. There's that moment of disconnect, and they come back. They turn towards you and seek that connection again. Right? They're
It's
not
just so
mad at you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
comes from just presence and being. And is purity the right word? I don't know.
Well, it's just a really clean kind of connection. It's just a really clean, natural flow of connection. If you are two beings that are doing something with the intention of doing that in a connected way, and there you find yourself in a place of disconnect, the best thing to do is to turn towards. To turn back towards one another and to try to find that place of connection again, rather than, again, what humans do is we love to go into kind of defensiveness and blame and criticism and all sorts of silly stuff that does nothing to serve connection. Right? Whereas horses serve connection in really powerful ways. They sense that moment of disconnect and they come back around and they go, hey, where are you? And are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As opposed to like, what's wrong with you, you stupid person? What are you doing on the ground? Like there's none of that.
Yeah. I was just thinking of something. I posted something the other day about like labeling, how we always talk about like problem behavior and having like a quote unquote magic fix or whatever. And I'm like, I
Mm,
don't think that's true. Um, and one passion of mine is like, and it stems from having gone down the route of exploring nonviolent communication,
mm.
is like awareness of the words we choose and the impact those words have.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and I wrote
energy they
like,
carry.
yeah, exactly. And this is it. I found it. So I said, instead of saying a bad behavior, because we always hear this bad behavior or behavior problem,
Mhm.
like you could describe Fion's bolting as a behavior problem. Yeah, okay, it is. But how about we say, well, it's a dysregulated behavior because
Mhm.
he's not coming, he's not grounded in that moment. His nervous system has gone poof somewhere
Yeah.
else. It's not present anymore. Yeah, it's the flight mode.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that doesn't make it bad or good. It's just dysregulated.
Yeah. Yeah. He's dysregulated in that moment. And it's not to place judgment on it does no good. And our particularly human language is loaded with all sorts of words that carry a lot of energy.
Mm.
Um, what's funny as you say that, it reminds me of I also do animal behavior therapy. Um, my degree happens to support that. It's not my main source of living, but I do it mainly for rescue dogs because I've been involved in that for a really long time, and oftentimes rescue organizations will put owners who are struggling to connect with their new rescue dogs in touch with me, and one of the very first things that I teach them is to not use the word no or nay or whatever negative thing that typically dog owners will use as a correction. And it's not because so there's a lot of positive reinforcement, of course, but we also know there needs to be a balance, right? You need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to give positive reinforcement, but at the same time hold boundaries. But
Yes.
you have to be able to hold a boundary in a neutral and clean way.
Yes.
Right? And if you're sitting there saying, no, bad dog, or no, stop it, that is not neutral. They cannot hear that, especially in a dysregulated state. They cannot be with that. So it's about learning how to communicate like, hey, that behavior that you just did, that's undesirable. This
Mm-hmm.
is not what we want. And it's about being able to find a way to communicate that neutral correction. So it's not about ignoring it and pretending like it's okay or just only focusing on the positive because that's a part of the equation that gets you part of the way, but being able to hold boundaries and also say, yeah, no, this is not how we want to be together.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Yeah.
is also important, but you have to be able to do that in a negative way, right? It's just like Theon when he wants to bolt. Number one, you're not going to reach him because he is dysregulated. Number two, if you're angry with him, it's just going to make him more dysregulated. He's not going to be able to hear that message. Yeah, whereas if you're able to come back with a neutral and clear message of this isn't how we are together. This is not how we find connection together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this in a different way. It changes the conversation entirely.
Yeah. I think that's still a path I'm exploring as to how to bring that neutrality.
Mhm.
Um, but I think we've made a lot of progress as well in that. Because one thing I've struggled with as someone who really cares about their animals and like how they're feeling is setting that boundary. It is hard,
Mhm.
when you want to meet them with compassion and empathy, setting boundaries is really difficult. Um, but it's interesting how in a given moment you can show up in a very instinctive way. Like, I actually surprised myself the other week. I was walking with Fionn and Zir and my friend Rianne, and Fionn, he it wasn't bolting, but he does this thing where he's suddenly like, right, I'm off over here, and it's not because he's dysregulated. He's just like, I'm going this way.
He's
and I'm
lost
like,
his concentration.
yeah, he's just like, it's like he's just detached from the whole concept of, hey, we're on a walk together. It's just like, I'm gonna go over here, and I'm like, no, sorry, dude, you're not doing that. And I literally like just swung my rope, and I didn't intend to hit him, but it hit him, and he just suddenly was like, oh yeah, we're not over there. And then he came back to me, and he was fine.
Yeah.
But it was just like, in that moment, that's just what my body did. It was like, bung, and I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But actually, he then suddenly was like, oh, yeah, actually, you're right. I shouldn't go over there. And that was interesting, because that's not something I would have done in the past. I would have just been there like, bye, and then he's gone. And probably with very badly rope burned hands, because I have had that in the past from him. And it's very painful.
It is. It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. But isn't that lovely that, once you build up sort of this intuition, this experience-based intuition, and because you weren't angry, right? It wasn't this harsh, I'm going to throw this rope at you in an effort to hurt you. It was just, it was that really neutral correction of, hey, pay attention, we're over here.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's saying, we're here. And, he's a big, muscly guy. So you kind of have to say that sometimes in a big way, or he won't snap out of it. But you're not, like you said, it's not, I'm mad at you, how dare you do this, you're going off and doing that. It's hey, I'm here, I'm not there. And I also tell him, I'm like, we don't do this anymore, you and I was like, you can do a lot of things, but this ain't one of them.
Yeah. This
and
is
just
not
having that
how we
energy
want
of
to
like
be. Yeah.
I almost describe it as, Gandalf when he goes, you shall not pass.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I kind of say to him. I'm like, you shall not pass.
Yeah, and Fionn responds really well to that. I remember once I was out with them, and he'd gotten himself riled up about something. I don't know if it was maybe the fireworks, or it was, I remember I was trying to move them off of the meadow. They'd been grazing on the meadow and had moved them, and he got himself just super riled up about it. He was just, he was protesting. He was throwing the equivalent of a 2-year-old temper tantrum of, no, but I want it. And he came charging towards me, and I just sort of raised my arms out and was, it was the Gandalf of like, no, I'm not playing this game with you. You are not going to charge me. And he just stopped, and he snorted, and he looked at me, and he was like, but okay. He was very upset, and then it was all fine. There's just like no further argument, because it was just, I wasn't trying to scare him. I wasn't playing, some people will a lot of times people with horses are told like, oh, you need to play bigger than them, or you need to scare them. You need to like come at them. And it's like, no, like again, it's just that clarity of, no, we're not going to be this way together. I am not playing this game with you. Right. And when we can do that, they get it, and their energy shifts immediately. It's just immediate. It's just like me, falling off the horse, doing this silly little crossrail. It's, it's like, okay, clear. Like, no, there's no more argument here. We're not doing this.
Yeah. I find it interesting what was coming up as I was remembering when we moved them, and how I was kind of like, we put Fionn in the train. I was like, Lisa, you're responsible for Fionn's emotions right now whilst I deal with the other two. And it's interesting, because I feel like now if I was to do that again, I'd come at it totally differently, because I think now that I'm kind of like, quote unquote, on my own with them, I've grown with that, and they've grown with that, and it's like our whole relationship has grown and shifted, and like I feel so much more present in how I can show up for them. and be aware of how they need me to show up. So it's actually funny. I was talking to the lady who transported them, and I said, like, because they just had the dentist a few days ago, and if you'd have told me like a few months ago, oh yeah, next time you do the dentist, you won't need to sedate them, I'd be like, but they did it. All three of them did so well. I mean,
Yeah.
Fionn gave up a little bit in the last 2 minutes, but again, we just said, hey, you can't just go off over there. You have to
Yeah.
stay here.
Yeah.
But he did it, and we finished it. And like I said to the lady who transported them, Caroline, I was like, I'm so curious next time we transport them how that's all going to go, because I think they're much more grounded and their sense of self is more present, and like the way they are as a herd is more collective,
Mhm.
but so am I.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really curious how that'll go.
Yeah. 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 And that's a huge thing about the horses is they reflect back to us our state of being. Right? They so the more regulated we are, and it's really possible to float their teeth, to do the things without, massive doses of medication when we are grounded and regulated. Because when we can regulate and we can be the ones who are grounded and be the ones to say, hey, no, come back to me. It's okay. They can really easily find that space. They turn towards really easily and they go, oh yeah, okay. I'll be here with you. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And that, it pushes our ability to be able to self-regulate and to be able to take that responsibility and accountability of, yeah, okay, like I can see this is upsetting for you. I can see it's scary for you. I'm here for you and we're going to be okay. And when we're able to do that, they're able to tune into that space really easily.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to you about it before, but it's like with Zia now, I just say, we're safe. And like, as long as I've literally said to her, like out loud, I've said, as long as you are with me, you will always be safe.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here for you, and I'm a safe space for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now she's so cute because she just goes like, she has all these little tiny snorts all the time.
Yeah.
She never did that before. She's just like, la la la. It's really funny. She likes to tell me about things, and I'm like, that's very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And that's lovely. And that's what happens in that, human horse bond and connection is, again, it's the story of self-regulation and co-regulation. The more each of us can better self-regulate and be open for the co-regulation, the stronger that bond and connection will be.
Mhm. I think as well, a thing that I find helpful and that I'm not so good at doing yet in the human world is when I'm like a day like today, um, when I'm feeling that it's difficult,
Mhm.
like connecting to my horses and being like, can I bring right now everything that they give to me and everything that they mean to me
Mm.
so that I can ground myself in this space that is so far away from them, but that by just connecting to that, they're then actually here and they're helping me in that moment, even though we're not together.
Yeah, so connecting to them from afar, connecting to them from a distance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, that's very much like, so in coaching, we call that an embodiment exercise, right?
Embodiment. Yeah.
Right. It's about going to that very embodied place. You've spent enough time with your horses to know what it feels like when you're with them. You've spent enough time with your horses to know what sensations are in your body when you're able to co-regulate with them. And it's about allowing yourself to sort of travel back to that space. You let the rush of the adrenaline and the frustration and all of those things go, and allow yourself to travel back to that, that cellular memory that you have
Mm.
of, yeah, I know what it's like to feel like grounded and connected with them. And so that's where I'm going to choose to go. Because
It's like
it's,
when you meditate, if you're doing a meditation, we all probably have somewhere where we go in that meditation.
Mhm.
And for me, every time I do it, it's the field where they currently are. Like I see it every time. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
that's what
yeah,
this is.
yeah,
Because those are those trees and there's there. Cool. Like,
yeah, yeah. So you have that, you have the embodiment of that, you have that cellular memory of that space and that place and the energy of it. And so
mm,
it's about allowing yourself to connect with that rather than being entrenched in the adrenaline and cortisol and all of the, the drama of
mm, mm.
the
The
now.
noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it can
Well,
get
and it's,
very loud
yeah,
sometimes.
it does. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It does. It does. And that's okay, right? We're all allowed to have our moments of dysregulation, right? Just like Fionn will have his moments of, I'm gonna bolt. I'm leaving. Here I go. You know? Like, that's okay. It's about you being able to recognize that and then course correct. And
Hmm.
you realize like, oh wait, that's not the path that I want to be on. That's actually not the space where I want to be spending my time, my energy, my resources. And coming back to, okay, what do I need to connect with? Right? What are the resources that are available? And it's lovely that you even know that even though your horses are not there with you, right outside your door, you can still connect with them, right?
Mm.
That resource, that energy is still available to you.
Yeah. And it's like asking myself the question, well, how would Zia need me to show up right now? How would Fionn need me to show up? Or Morgan,
Yeah.
and bringing those together into my daily life. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think I'm going to start asking questions and see if a conversation stems from those questions as well.
Sure.
Um, so I have 6 questions, and I feel like the list will grow longer um, at some point. But at the moment there are 6. I started off with 3, now I have 6. But the
It's
first one,
expanding. Yeah.
yeah, it is expanding. Because sometimes they just like someone will say something in podcast. I'm like, oh, that's a really actually, yeah. Let's bring that into question.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I'm okay. I'm gonna do a reversal. I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my
Sure.
way back.
Yeah.
I've not done that before. Um, what limiting belief have you transcended thanks to horses?
Oh my goodness. So many. I get chills from that. I think the very first one was that I'm not likable. Having grown
Oh.
up as an only child and with a really dysregulated mother who, really, really sort of blamed me for everything. Um, I felt very responsible, very accountable, and I felt very much like there was just nothing I could do right, and people just didn't like me. Um, and and horses, really helped me let go of that limiting belief is sort of the first one that comes to mind. And there are so many
Mm.
others.
I mean, you can share more if you like.
Well, I think that's probably the, biggest and most transformative one. I think, another one that horses played a role in it, although I wasn't consciously aware of it at the time, so it didn't really land with me in the same way. I had to go through a burnout in order to really learn this lesson, but was absolutely taught to me by horses, and it was, hard work is not always the answer. You know, when you are in a problem, when something isn't working right, hard work is not always the answer. Um, and that was a huge limiting belief that I carried with me throughout, yeah, most of my life. But the horses taught it to me time and time again.
How does the phrase hard work always pays off land with you?
Oh, it's terribly. It doesn't
Yeah.
land with me. It
Yeah.
just feels like it's a, number one, it's a false dichotomy because it, it doesn't always pay off. Hard work
Mhm.
isn't always required. Um, and it lands us in a trap of
Mhm.
believing that working hard and perseverance is always going to be the thing. Sometimes it is, right? Sometimes there are moments where hard work or perseverance are good, but always, absolutely not.
No. That one came up because because of what you said, and also I had a really difficult thing to learn when I stopped competing at a higher level in sport
Yeah.
was my last season. I worked the hardest I had ever worked.
Mm,
I
mhm,
was the fittest
mhm.
I had ever been. I was the fastest I'd ever been, but I just wasn't performing. So essentially, I had learned, well, hard work doesn't pay off.
Yeah.
But I couldn't meet it in a non-toxic way because I then went into flight school with this whole people telling me, well, you're working really hard, so you'll pass your exams. And I was like, but hard work doesn't always pay off. Hard work doesn't always pay off. Like, it's no guarantee. There's no guarantee with this. And that's what I kept telling myself. And I had to just shift that and tell myself, okay, I can put the effort in,
Mhm.
but rest is also required. And I had
Yeah.
a really good friend who held me accountable. And he was like, you're not allowed to do any studying 1 day a week. Like, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
And he would literally force me to go off campus. We would rent a car and we'd drive around somewhere in Spain. And he'd like, we're not going to talk about anything to do with what we're studying. We're just going to
That's
talk about anything
lovely.
else except that. Um, so then I started to learn this really difficult thing called
Yeah.
rest and
Mhm.
regulation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 I'm so happy that you had that friend with you because it's, y- you can stay up and study and try and cram a certain amount of information into your brain, and then at a certain point you reach the level of diminishing returns,
Mhm.
for every extra minute, for every extra hour that is spent, you're actually losing information rather than gaining it, and
Mm.
it just doesn't work. And yeah, I remember in one of the ways that the horses taught me that was it was a year where I had been competing a lot with horses. I was doing hunters and jumpers in the U.S. and had a really successful year. I'd won several championships, and I was in a state championship. I was in the what was called the medal finals, and uh, I had earlier that year really pushed myself beyond my limits, and not only did I this is a funny story. Not only did I not even place in that class, I didn't even get to be in the class because I was so busy trying to finish up this and that and the other, the braiding and the this and the that. The class happened and I didn't even make it into the arena.
Oh no.
Yeah, talk about, diminishing returns. It's like, oh my gosh, like there wasn't even a chance because I was so busy working hard. I missed the entire thing. And so here I was at the state championships, and there are all these people watching, and I was going into the final round. I was in second place. And um there had been again, my mother always placed a lot of pressure on me. And that day I had decided that morning that I didn't care what the outcome was. I was proud of what I had already accomplished, and it didn't matter. And I just wanted to be there and enjoy the day and remember the day. It was a beautiful summer's day, and we were out in this beautiful arena with a view of Pikes Peak in Colorado. And, it was gorgeous. And I just wanted to be able to
Mm.
experience the day. And, and I did. And I won the state championship, and it was not hard work. It was a day where I just got to ride, and I just got to be myself, and I got to be with my horse. I got to be with this amazing horse that I had, that he was so willing to do anything for me. And,
Mm.
and we were just such a good team, and we just got to be, right? And it was not hard work,
Yeah.
right? And it was just, it wasn't about winning. It was about, I remember everything about that day because I wasn't busy trying to do all of the things and working hard and trying to be perfect and trying to, impress anybody or do anything, that was spectacular. I was just being, and we just
Mm.
got to be ourselves. And and it was so lovely. It was just such a wonderful day, and it had nothing to do with the winning. It had everything to do with how that day felt.
Yeah. I'm crying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, my
beautiful.
horse Tom was, I think of him still, and I get tears in my eyes. It's just he was such a good partner. He
Yeah.
was such a good horse, and he taught me so much. And yeah, he was amazing, and we were just such a good team. And he taught me how to be a genuine team with a horse, right? He taught me how to be, um, and how to let that happen rather than having to, like, work hard for it. It wasn't about the equitation. It wasn't about the technique. It was about letting it happen.
Yeah. Ah,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Mm. Yeah.
I feel like that's something because whenever I record and then I edit and listen back, that's something that future me will probably need to hear at some point when I'm editing it.
Mm. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the next question, um, it comes from so I'm reading at the pace that I need to
Mm.
in accordance with my own personal self-growth and ability to handle what is written there,
Yeah.
is the book Women Who Run with Wolves.
Mm.
And yeah, I think one of the things that came up was like, we talk about rewilding and blah, 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 blah. And I was really aware when I first came across rewilding, it was not long after I got zirconia, and I was like, okay, my job in her life is to rewild her to who the horse is. Um, but I was not being aware of how that shows up in myself until I first came here to where I currently live and stood
Yeah.
on top of the hills, and I was like, oh, this is the wild woman that she bangs on
Ah.
about. This is it.
Yeah.
So my question is, what or where makes you feel wild?
Oh my gosh, there are so many places that make me feel wild. Two stories come to mind. One is, actually, it was not last year. No, it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. I did a retreat in Canada and just spent a whole entire week with a herd of horses in British Columbia, just on this, huge plot of land. There's no riding, there's no grooming, there's no anything. You just literally just go and sit in a field with this herd of horses that are amazing. Um, and I number one, I immediately felt the missing, that deep longing, and yeah, this is gonna make me cry, that deep longing of being in the wilderness, because in the Netherlands, there is no wilderness. There are lots of green spaces, there are lots of, things like that, but there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing that hasn't been touched by human hands. And just sort of being there in the genuine wilderness where there are eagles flying overhead and you could hear the river running down the mountain, and there's just this herd of horses that at one point, I guess there were about 6 of us that were on this retreat, and at one point, like 4 horses came and just sort of circled me and just all laid down. They all just laid down around me. And then one horse who, she had been a brood mare, and she came over and she just rested her muzzle just right on the top of my head and just stood there for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, just stood there. Um, and just, yeah, just feeling that immense connection with nature and the wilderness and the power of this herd, um, and their ability to just be with me. Um, yeah, like that's when I feel, to me, wild feels like being in connection with nature.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not about being wild and crazy and, high energy. It's about that connection with nature. Um, and that's amazing. That's a part of what makes me feel wild. And then another, I have a huge connection with water, which is interesting because I grew up in Colorado. It's like the furthest away from any ocean you can get almost. And but I'm a water baby. I've always loved water. And I remember the first time I went to New Zealand and was in Kaikoura. And Kaikoura is a Maori. It's on the South Island of New Zealand on the Pacific coast, and it's a historic Maori place. And it's just, you can feel sort of the sacredness of that land. You
Hmm.
can feel the sacredness of that place, and you can be with nature in really amazing ways. There are these huge mountains that just spill into the ocean, and at the tip of the peninsula, you can walk down and just walk amongst a massive seal colony, and then you can do things like, you can there are sperm whales that live there year round. It's the only place on Earth that you can be and see a whale every single day. You're guaranteed to see a whale every single day there. Um, and you can go swimming with dolphins. And they're not just any kind of dolphin. They are called dusky dolphins, and they're teeny tiny. They're itty bitty little dolphins. They're just, they're like a meter and a half, and they're really playful and they're really social, and they're like, if an whole entire breed of animal could be extroverted, they're extroverted. They're just like, they're in your face and they want attention and they play and they call and they flip and they jump and they're just full of joy. Um, and being in the water with the dolphins just really makes me feel wild. You just feel sort of, again, it's the power of the herd. They live in these pods of hundreds. They don't travel in small families. They're not like bottlenose dolphins that tend to travel in smaller families. They travel in pods of 100 or more. And they play and they call to each other and they flip and they just have all of these social behaviors, and just being in the water with them just makes me feel incredibly wild and incredibly, again, connected with nature and full of life and fun and joy. Um, yeah. So being wild, those are the places.
That's really nice. I love like hearing everyone's answer to the questions because it's all different.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it's a wonderful thing. So the next one, music for me is something that, like, I'm terrible at it. Like, if you ask me to play the violin, I'm like, um, but it's always been something that creates a lot of emotive memories.
Mhm.
So, like, I'll hear a given song and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember I was here, or this reminds me of that, or blah blah blah. So I like to ask this question: what music reminds you of your horse? So maybe for you that's Tom. Is there any music that reminds you of him?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Um, 'Cause yeah, I love music. I absolutely love music. I have 0 musical ability, but huge appreciation for it. So I
High
think we fall in
five.
yeah, I think we fall into the same bucket on that. Um, and it's funny, I don't automatically associate a song with any of my horses. You know, I had several horses throughout my life. But yeah, Tom probably uh, he had a profound impact on me. Um, I guess as I think about it now, like the song that comes to mind is Nina Simone's "Feeling Good." You know, with there's like that very deep bass, that boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, and that yeah, like and there's a joy in it. There's this like soulful joy in it, and I think that's very much. It's not a song that I necessarily associate with him, but it's what comes up as we talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, feeling good.
Mm, I'm just gonna find something. This is what happens sometimes. I have to go off and find something.
Yeah.
Um, it's Michaela Schifrin, which to all the non-horsey people, um, my sport prior to life. I don't know.
Prior to life with horses, maybe?
Anyway, my
In a
sport
former
was
life you
alpine.
had.
In a
Yeah.
former life, in a past life of my current life. I used to compete in alpine skiing, and Michaela is like, I don't know how to describe her. She's my age, so I've known about her for many, many, many years, and she's oh the most successful female and overall most winningest athlete of all time in my sport. And she created a podcast recently, which is very, very cool.
Mm,
But she sort of talks about like, so she's called it "What's the point?"
okay.
Because she says that's a question that actually comes up a lot for her. It's like, well, what's the point in ski racing? Why am I doing this? And
Uh-huh.
it's so cool because she posted this, and I was like, I resonate so much with that because I remember asking exactly the same question over and over again when I was doing the sport, and I was like, what is the point? And I don't often comment on these kind of things, but I thought, you know what? This is coming up. So I just started typing. I was like, joy. In the simple
Mm.
answer is joy. And
Uh-huh.
I said, like, why did I ski race? Because it brought me joy. Why do I have horses? Because it brought me joy. Why do I fly? Because it brings me joy. Why
Mm.
do I have a cat? Because it brings me joy. You
Yeah,
know? Why do I podcast? Because it brings me joy.
joy.
So, yeah, I wanted to bring that little thing up.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
joy is an essential part of our existence, and going back to Brené Brown, right? You brought up Brené Brown earlier, and one of my favorite things that she says is, yeah, joy is our most vulnerable emotion. Because the moment that we feel it, we feel the lunge of, and what about when it disappears? And
Mm.
and when we start to learn to just lean into the joy rather than the fear of it disappearing, it becomes so powerful and it's so playful and it's such a wonderful emotion. But it takes a lot of emotional maturity to be able to actually genuinely experience it because it
Mhm.
because it is so powerful, it becomes really scary.
Because we don't want to lose it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just
But the thing
deeply
is, we might.
vulnerable. Mm. Well, we
But that
will.
doesn't mean to say that we won't find it elsewhere.
exactly, that it won't come back again. It will come and go. It's not a permanent state.
No.
And it's not meant to be. I mean, it would be really boring if it were.
The image that comes to mind is Fionn trotting around like he does with his
Yeah.
little tail up, and he does
Yeah.
his little head toss.
Snorting and very proud of himself. And no.
Like, yeah, I'm joyful. Like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he embodies that.
Yeah.
I really love this question, and you can invite to this question any horse or multiple horses as you like.
Right.
So if your horse was a part of this conversation, what do you feel they would say about you?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It's funny. I want to go to the very first horse that I owned. So the very first horse that I, took ownership and responsibility for. Well, I mean, I think I was 11 years old. He was an Arabian pony, this little pot-bellied Arabian pony that I bought him as a jumping horse, and he was so badly mismatched with jumping. He was not built for this. There is nothing about him that liked this. And I think he and I regularly had conversations about, okay, like, how are we going to do this? Like, what is going on here, and how are we going to do this? And so I think, yeah, he's the one that comes to mind about, like, what would he say about me? And I think he would say, first of all, thank you for seeing me. I didn't sell him on as a jumping horse. I sold him on as a trail horse, so he never had to see another jump in his entire life. Thank you for seeing me, and thank you for seeing where my talent really was. And I think he would call me honest, and he would call me very patient. He's the horse that I broke my back on. I broke my back when I was 12 years old. He disliked jumping so much that he developed this talent to be able to, he would bring his momentum forward like he was going to go over the jump. So you would go into a 2-point position where you're now standing in the stirrups, and then he would use that momentum to then spin himself around and get out from underneath you, and you'd go sailing over the jump by yourself. And he did this not only to me, but to many people. We even had a very famous international horse jumper who'd come to our stable to buy some of our horses, Hap Hansen. And he threw him off. He could get anybody off. He was just really good at this. And yeah, I broke my back doing that, because I landed really, really deep in sand one day, and my legs just literally snapped. I did a headstand, and my legs just snapped backwards. And yeah, but yeah, I was honest with him. I think he would call me honest and kind. There was never any blaming of him for what he just wasn't built to do.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
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 I like that. I just had an image come up. Like, I'll share this story, like, because it was a similar age. I didn't break my back, but I remember we were doing these jumps, like, off-piste, where you'd kind of go down, and then you'd need a ledge. Basically, you need a ledge. So you
you
go
need
off
something
the
to give you
ledge.
lift on your skis.
Yeah, you'd go off the ledge, and then the objective was you would rotate your body so that you then plant your skis 90 degrees in the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Into kind of a sitting position. And it was great fun. We were like 10 years old, 11 years old. Super, super fun.
It's great fun in powder. It's fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the English word, but in French we called it an arribouniette. Anyway, one time it did not go so well for me. And I went towards the jump. And I think up until this point, I didn't have any significant traumas on skis. But after this point, I did not have the best relationship with jumping because I went flying and then had too much rotational force.
Yeah.
And they filmed it, so I saw it afterwards. And like my feet flung up over my heads, and my head was like on the where my feet should be.
Okay. Yeah. So
So I was
you
completely
did it.
flipped 180 degrees upside down.
Yeah.
And my head on the video, it like scraped over the surface, and I continued moving forward. And then I obviously lost that force, so I then rotated back down and then went smack onto my back.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was winded, and I didn't know what winded was, but I remember in that moment I thought I was dying because I
Yeah.
couldn't breathe.
It's scary the first
So I was
time.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, as I'm sure you can probably relate. It's like, I can't breathe. And I remember like thinking, this is really weird. I remember thinking about my childhood cat, Holly, because I was like, well, if I'm about to die, this is the last thing I want to think of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my last thought to be of her.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just terrifying. I remember it like, and I did it like a couple more times where I've winded myself, like in gymnastics, and then one more time skiing, and it's pretty terrifying. And I remember watching this video again, and I remember thinking, because what reminded me of it was when you said about your head. I remember watching it and thinking, I could have broken my neck. Like in that moment, my head kind of like hit the ground.
Yeah.
When I was upside down.
Was this in the day? Was this before you were wearing helmets with just everyday skiing, or were you wearing?
I always wore a helmet, like I was meant to from when I was 3 years old, much to my resentment.
That's good. I grew up skiing without helmets. Yeah, I grew up skiing without any helmet.
But yeah, it's scary when you go through something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet we come back from it, you know. It's not the end. The story.
And I think
story goes
when
on.
you're that age, you're kind of just, in a way, you kind of just get up again and brush yourself down, and you're like, yeah, let's just carry on. You know?
Well, because I had broken my spine, there was no brushing myself off.
Literally get up. No. But it didn't stop you from coming back.
No.
And trying again.
Yeah. No. I was back on a horse again within 6 weeks, and
that's impressive.
Yeah, back doing my thing. Yeah.
Next question. There's 2 left. What message do you want to send out into the horse world about horses?
Oh, that's funny. I feel that one in my armpits. It's funny. I like it hits me there. I think the heart of what I really want in the horse world is I want kindness together with bravery. Continue to be brave, but continue to be kind, and remember that horsemanship is really about partnership. Right? It's a partnership, and turn towards, right? That constant turning towards and leaning into the connection. But yeah. Be brave, but be kind to both yourself and your horses. And amazing things happen. Right?
Yep. Things that you didn't think could or would be possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll leave that one there. I think that's very nice. So the last one is, what gifts have you received from horses that keep showing up for you?
Oh my goodness, so many. I don't even know where to begin. I think this whole conversation has been about many, many of the gifts. Certainly self-regulation and co-regulation. I absolutely learned from horses. I wouldn't have known it then, but I can see it with just 100% clarity now. Learn the lesson of it isn't about hard work. Right? It's about being who you are meant to be and showing up in the way that you are meant to show up. and being attuned to that, and being attuned to that for your horses as well. It's just like, yeah, the story of my horse Misty. He was not meant to be a jumping pony. This was not his calling. um, and that's okay, right? That's not a failure. That's not a failure on anybody's part. It's just recognizing, like, hey, this is not his zone of genius. This is not where he's meant to be. He's meant to be doing something completely different with his life. And that, yeah, that's a powerful lesson to learn at a young age, right? That you don't need to be spending your time and energy in things that technically you can do, but you don't really want to be. So stop it. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think I learned that one when I retired.
Mm,
Because I'm like, this is not serving me anymore. It's not who I'm meant to be or want to be. And where I'm at now is not this.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good at skiing. You had a talent for it, but this is not what made you feel alive. This is not what,
Mm.
you had capabilities, but not your zone of genius.
Yeah, instead a little white, well, not a little white, a horse, a medium-sized
Yeah.
cob paint horse in the Netherlands was doing that instead.
Yeah. 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 And isn't it lovely when we can open up those places of flow and where we're meant to be, and even if it's just where we're meant to be in that moment, right? It may be
Mm-hmm.
very transient. It doesn't have to be fixed. I think that's a lot of one thing that people get very confused about is they think that, like, their strengths or their gifts, their talents, their zone of genius, whatever label you want to put on it, is like this fixed thing. And it's not, and neither is it something that you're automatically just born with all of it, nor
Mm-hmm.
is it something that stays the same your entire life. It can change and move and morph and shift.
Same with
Um,
us.
yeah, yeah,
And day to day.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Ah, cool.
yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to bring to this conversation?
I guess my wish for everybody that's out there listening is to, find your own place of attunement. Find that for yourself, find that for your
Mm-hmm.
horse. Tune into that, that the power of that self-regulation and that co-regulation, and be open to the possibility that lives in that space. Because there is, and I feel it in my hands, like there's genuine magic in that space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I wish. I wish for people to, with their horses, to feel that and to lean into that space.
Now you're
Yeah.
gonna make me cry again.
Yeah.
3 times on one podcast. It's pretty good going.
Well, it's not the goal, but it's a welcome,
No,
it's
but
a welcome addition.
it's like just, yeah, the beauty of what you've said, and thank you so much for everything you've said during this recording.
Yeah.
As always, I just could listen to you forever, I guess.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for inviting me on, and thank you so much for the power of the lessons that you bring as well, and the power of your curiosity. So thank you so
Mm,
much, and thanks for sharing your podcast and all of your wonderful conversations with the world.
thanks. Before we end, where can people find you?
People can find my business at Leadership Labs. That's labs with an S.eu. You can find me sometimes on social media, but not regularly. That is not my zone of genius, and it is not my sweet spot. But you can find me I'm old, so I'm on Facebook. Instagram is not my thing. You can tell my age. I'm a Facebook person, not an Instagram person or LinkedIn. But yeah, would love to connect with anybody out there who's interested in exploring their leadership range and their own leadership
Hmm.
horizons, and whether it be how you show up with your horses, your dogs, your family, or in your workplace. Yeah,
Yeah, or even in your personal relationships as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leadership is not like a rigid thing, it's a very broad thing, isn't it?
Leadership is a practice, and it is
Mm.
a way of life. It's not a lifestyle, but it's a
Hmm.
practice in life. And we can show up as leaders in every single space that we touch.
Including ourselves and within, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all starts with the leader within. Yeah. Yeah. We have to
That's a
feel
great
that
way to
space.
end.
Yeah.
Boom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
I can't remember a time before you walked into my life. You took the broken parts of me and made it all alright. There's an easiness to your grace that I will never know, and every day this feeling only grows, and every moment with you just bleeds into one. Your easy smile greets my eyes just like the morning sun, a reflection of my soul, one heart that beats for two. Just know, my love, that I will carry you.